Top 60 Philosophers in Chronological Order, Part 2. 48. Machiavelli. Born 1469 and died 1527. Niccolò di Bernardo de Machiavelli was an Italian diplomat, author, philosopher, and historian who lived during the Renaissance. He is best known for his political treatise, The Prince, written in about 1513 but not published until 1532. He has often been called the father of modern political philosophy and political science. After his death, Machiavelli's name came to evoke unscrupulous acts of the sort he advised most famously in his work, The Prince. He claimed that his experience and reading of history showed him that politics have always been played with deception, treachery, and crime. 47. Francis Bacon. Born 1561 and died 1626. Francis Bacon was an English philosopher and statesman who served as Attorney General and Lord Chancellor of England. Bacon led the advancement of both natural philosophy and the scientific method, and his works remained influential even in the late stages of the scientific revolution. Bacon has been called the father of empiricism. He argued for the possibility of scientific knowledge based only upon inductive reasoning and careful observation of events in nature. 46. Thomas Hobbes. Born 1588 and died 1679. Thomas Hobbes was an English philosopher. Hobbes is best known for his 1651 book Leviathan, in which he expounds an influential formulation of social contract theory. In addition to political philosophy, Hobbes contributed to a diverse array of other fields, including history, jurisprudence, geometry, theology, and ethics, as well as philosophy in general. He is considered to be one of the founders of modern political philosophy. 45. René Descartes. Born 1596 and died 1650. René Descartes was a French philosopher, scientist, and mathematician, widely considered a seminal figure in the emergence of modern philosophy and science. Mathematics was central to his method of inquiry, and he connected the previously separate fields of geometry and algebra into analytic geometry. Many elements of Descartes' philosophy have precedence in late Aristotelianism, the revived Stoicism of the 16th century, or in earlier philosophers like Augustine. 44. Margaret Cavendish. Born 1623 and died 1673. Margaret Lucas Cavendish, Duchess of Newcastle upon Tyne, was an English philosopher, poet, scientist, fiction writer, and playwright. She published under her own name at a time when most women writers remained anonymous. Her topics included gender, power, manners, scientific method, and philosophy. Her utopian romance, The Blazing World, is one of the earliest examples of science fiction. 43. Blaise Pascal. Born 1623 and died 1662. Blaise Pascal was a French mathematician, physicist, inventor, philosopher, and Catholic writer. He was a child prodigy who was educated by his father, a tax collector in Rouen. Pascal's earliest mathematical work was on conic sections. He wrote a significant treatise on the subject of projective geometry at the age of 16. He later corresponded with Pierre de Fermat on probability theory, strongly influencing the development of modern economics and social science. In 1642, while still a teenager, he started some pioneering work on calculating machines, establishing him as one of the first two inventors of the mechanical calculator. 42. John Locke. Born 1632 and died 1704. John Locke was an English philosopher and physician, widely regarded as one of the most influential of Enlightenment thinkers and commonly known as the father of liberalism. Considered one of the first of the British empiricists, following the tradition of Francis Bacon, Locke is equally important to social contract theory. His work greatly affected the development of epistemology and political philosophy. His writings influenced Voltaire and Jean-Jacques Rousseau and many Scottish Enlightenment thinkers, as well as the American revolutionaries. His contributions to classical republicanism and liberal theory are reflected in the United States Declaration of Independence. 41. Baruch Spinoza. Born 1632 and died 1677. Baruch Spinoza was a Dutch philosopher of Portuguese Jewish origin born in Amsterdam. one of the foremost exponents of 17th-century rationalism and one of the early and seminal thinkers of the Enlightenment and modern biblical criticism, including modern conceptions of the self and the universe, he came to be considered one of the most important philosophers and certainly the most radical of the early modern period. Inspired by Stoicism, Jewish rationalism, Machiavelli, Hobbes, Descartes, and a variety of heterodox religious thinkers of his day, Spinoza became a leading philosophical figure of the Dutch Golden Age. 40. Gottfried Leibniz, born 1646 and died 1716. Gottfried Wilhelm von Leibniz was a German polymath active as a mathematician, philosopher, scientist, and diplomat. He is one of the most prominent figures in both the history of philosophy and the history of mathematics. He wrote works on philosophy, theology, ethics, politics, law, history, and philology. Leibniz also made major contributions to physics and technology, and anticipated notions that surfaced much later in probability theory, biology, medicine, geology, psychology, linguistics, and computer science. He wrote in several languages, primarily in Latin, French, and German, but also in English, Italian, and Dutch. 39. George Berkeley, born 1685 and died 1753. George Berkeley was an Anglo-Irish philosopher whose primary achievement was the advancement of a theory he called immaterialism, later referred to as subjective idealism by others. This theory denies the existence of material substance and instead contends that familiar objects like tables and chairs are ideas perceived by the mind, and as a result cannot exist without being perceived. Berkeley is also known for his critique of abstraction, an important premise in his argument for immaterialism. 38. François-Marie Arouet, a.k.a. Monsieur de Voltaire, born 1694 and died 1778. A French Enlightenment writer, historian, and philosopher, Voltaire was famous for his wit and his criticism of Christianity, especially of the Roman Catholic Church, and of slavery. Voltaire was an advocate of freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and separation of church and state. Voltaire was a versatile and prolific writer, producing works in almost every literary form, including plays, poems, novels, essays, histories, and scientific expositions. He wrote more than 20,000 letters and 2,000 books and pamphlets. 37. David Hume, born 1711 and died 1776, was a Scottish Enlightenment philosopher, historian, economist, librarian, and essayist, who is best known today for his highly influential system of philosophical empiricism, skepticism, and naturalism. Beginning with a treatise of human nature, Hume strove to create a naturalistic science of man that examined the psychological basis of human nature. Hume argued against the existence of innate ideas, positing that all human knowledge derives solely from experience. This places him with Francis Bacon, Thomas Hobbes, John Locke, and George Berkeley as an empiricist. Thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this combination of philosophy and AI, please consider liking and subscribing.